Hey YouTube, I'm the Tall Nerd. Welcome back once again. Sorry for being a day late, still trying to get over back problems and all that good stuff. But today, I want to talk about superpowers. I love superpowers because I love superheroes. I love just thinking about people who have these abilities that are just beyond our normal everyday understanding and power to achieve. So I think about superpowers a lot and how characters use them creatively or maybe not so creatively. And so I frequently run across images like this one, talking about the most useless superpowers. And I find them entertaining, but most of the time I also can't help but see them as a bit of a challenge. Because I feel like a lot of superpowers that we call useless or just, throw out the window immediately, it's not really because they're actually useless or necessarily useless, but it's because the way that you would use them or the reason that they might be useful isn't immediately apparent to us. I mean, for a superhero, it's obvious why you might want to have super strength or be invulnerable or fly. But there are some other more niche powers that it just doesn't make quite as much sense. So I'm actually going to try this. I'm actually going to try to analyze some of these useless superpowers that I've come across that I don't think are actually useless. Now, for starters, yeah, some of them are pretty useless, or at least I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't be. But I'm going to take a shot at a few of them, starting with this one, the ability to be invisible in darkness. Now, immediately it sounds like, oh yeah, obviously that's useless because if nobody can see you anyway, why be invisible? But I'm going to take advantage of and really just abuse the fact that that image is very, very vague. So let's talk about that, the wording. To be invisible in the dark. Well, that carries a very important question with it. What counts as dark? Because obviously, this isn't dark, just as obviously this is. But where do you draw the line? For example, what about something like this? Is this still dark? Or what about this? I mean, we're still not back to how bright it was before, but does this count as dark anymore? That's the big question, the really important question. Okay, hold on. Much better. Okay. So, at what point along that spectrum does it stop being dark? At what point does that power stop working? Because even in the most dark situation, you could still might get some use out of it. After all, we're not totally blind unless it is completely pitch black. You can still see shapes, outlines. So being invisible might actually help because, after all, if it's dark, you're going to be paying more attention to what's going on. So if you're invisible, then, you have that extra edge on top of how difficult it is to see anyway. But there's more than that, because if we abuse this idea that we don't really know where the line is between light and dark, there's an argument that you could become totally invisible anytime that you step into a shadow, even in the middle of a day. So that would be terrifying for anybody who's trying to fight you. Every time you step into a shadow, you're just gone. Or maybe only part of you needs to be in darkness. What if as long as you have a couple of toes in total darkness, your whole body can become invisible? Well, that's pretty cool, considering that technically your feet are pretty much always in darkness inside your shoes. These are the kinds of limitations that you have to think about if you want to make a lot of these useless superpowers work. Really, it's just a question of, well, where do you draw the line? Where are the limitations really? Because, yeah, you can just go with the obvious. It has to be totally dark in order to be invisible. But if you just push against those boundaries a little bit, if you just test the waters, you can actually write some really interesting stories, have really cool characters who are just thinking their way around these limitations. Have somebody, zip in and out of being visible as they run through a city street in the afternoon and as they're passing in and out of shadows. Or maybe this kind of invisibility does more than just sort of the traditional idea where, yeah, it's dark, so nobody can see you. And on top of that, you're also invisible to, say, infrared. Then that becomes very useful because so that even if your enemies have infrared cameras, night vision, all that stuff, they still can't pick you up. So I wanted to start with this one just because it felt pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Why, with a little bit of thought, it's not that difficult to see ways that this could be useful, whether it's in just total darkness or if it's all the way up to anything that's not total sunlight, you can be invisible. Either way, I think it's at least an interesting idea and something that should be explored. Every superhero is super strong or invulnerable, but that can be kind of boring. Everybody has that. It's just kind of expected. But having a hero with this kind of power and these kinds of limitations, that is just inherently interesting because you can't help but ask yourself, okay, how on earth are they actually going to make this work? And so I think that there should definitely be more time spent looking into these very strange powers and saying, okay, but how can I make them work? So for me, the ability to be invisible in the dark is not a useless superpower. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you think that I'm just stretching a bit too far with the whole shadow thing? Let me know down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Until next time, have a great day.